Young Ji-ho, a 7-year-old child from the distant planet Nuri, had never experienced the simple joy of running through fields or walking alongside his friends. Born with legs that refused to move, his condition puzzled the most brilliant medical minds across his world. His parents would often watch him gazing through the window of their home, eyes following other children playing in the purple meadows surrounding their settlement. "There must be something we haven't tried," his mother would say night after night, scrolling through medical research on their holographic displays while Ji-ho slept. She was a respected botanical researcher, his father a physicist specializing in quantum communications. Between them, they had connections to the finest hospitals and research centers on Nuri. The Nurian doctors, with their tall, slender frames and 6-fingered hands, had performed countless tests. They placed Ji-ho in regeneration chambers, attempted neural stimulation, and even proposed experimental genetic therapies. Nothing worked. His legs remained stubbornly still while the rest of his body developed normally. "The neural pathways simply don't form the correct connections," explained Dr. Han, the leading neurological specialist in the capital city. "We've mapped every signal pattern, but there's a fundamental disconnect we cannot bridge with our current technology." Ji-ho's parents refused to accept this verdict. They traveled to medical facilities on 2 neighboring planets, bringing their son through uncomfortable space journeys that left the boy exhausted but hopeful. Each time, their hopes were crushed by similar conclusions. What made Ji-ho's case particularly frustrating to Nurian medical science was that they could identify the problem perfectly. Their advanced imaging could trace the exact points where neural signals disappeared before reaching his leg muscles. They could map the defect down to the cellular level. But knowing the problem and solving it proved to be entirely different matters. Despite everything, Ji-ho remained curious and bright. He designed his own hovering chair with special attachments that allowed him to join other children in modified versions of their games. He excelled in sciences at his learning center and developed a particular interest in different species across the galaxy. "Do you think humans get sick like me?" he asked his father one evening, while they studied Earth's cultures, part of Ji-ho's ongoing fascination with the relatively new galactic neighbors from the small blue planet. "Everyone gets sick sometimes," his father replied carefully, "but everyone's bodies work differently too." Little did they know that this casual conversation about humans would eventually change everything. The following week, Ji-ho's Learning Center announced an exciting visitor. Actual human scientists would be coming as part of the first major cultural and scientific exchange program. When the Earth delegation arrived, they caused quite a stir among the Nurian population. Humans were shorter than Nurians, with their strange 5-fingered hands and varied skin tones. Among them was Dr. Kim, a woman who specialized in helping humans with mobility problems. Ji-ho's parents weren't initially planning to bother the Earth visitors with their personal problems. But during a public presentation about human medical technology, Dr. Kim showed video of human children using specialized equipment to overcome mobility challenges remarkably similar to Ji-ho's condition. "These mechanical solutions may seem basic compared to your biological approaches," Dr. Kim explained to the Nurian audience, many of whom watched with polite skepticism. "But sometimes the simplest path works when complex ones fail." After the presentation, Ji-ho's mother pushed through her natural shyness and approached the human doctor. "My son, he cannot walk, has never walked," she explained hesitantly. "Your devices, could they possibly help someone with completely different biology?" Dr. Kim didn't offer false hope but requested to review Ji-ho's medical records. That evening, she sat in her temporary quarters, studying the Nurian medical files with growing interest. The problem wasn't so different from certain human conditions, despite the alien physiology. The Nurians had been so focused on fixing the biological pathway that they'd never considered bypassing it entirely. "It's like they've been trying to repair a broken bridge," she told her colleague that night, "when sometimes you just need to build a boat instead." 3 days later, Ji-ho and his parents were invited to meet with Dr. Kim and a small team of Nurian doctors who had agreed to discuss a radical new approach. Ji-ho couldn't contain his excitement as they entered the medical facility. Something about the way the adults spoke, with cautious hope rather than practiced sympathy, told him this time might be different. "We can't promise anything," Dr. Kim told them honestly, kneeling to meet Jiho at eye level. "But I think we might have a way to help you walk using a combination of our technologies." For the first time in years, Jiho allowed himself to imagine standing on his own feet, taking steps across a room. The possibility seemed both terrifying and wonderful. As the adults discussed technical details around him, he sat quietly, picturing himself walking alongside his friends under Nuri's orange sky, no longer watching from his hovering chair. What no one in the room fully realized yet was that this meeting wasn't just about helping one child walk. It represented the beginning of something much bigger, a fundamental shift in how two very different species would learn to solve problems together. Dr. Kim hadn't planned on treating patients during her 3-month scientific exchange mission to Nuri. She'd come to learn about Nurian medicine, share human medical techniques, and establish the groundwork for future collaboration. Yet here she was, staring at medical scans of a young boy's nervous system that looked surprisingly familiar despite its alien structure. "The signal disruption patterns are remarkably similar to several human conditions," she explained to her colleague over a late meal in their temporary housing unit. The food, something like blue rice with protein cubes, had long gone cold as they reviewed Jiho's case files. "But their technology is so advanced," her colleague replied. "If they can't fix it, how could our methods help?" Dr. Kim smiled slightly. "Sometimes when you're too close to a problem, you miss simple solutions. They've been trying to regrow and reconnect neural pathways because that's what Nurian medicine excels at. They never considered a mechanical bypass." The next morning, Dr. Kim requested a meeting with the lead Nurian medical team. She waited nervously in a room designed for beings slightly taller than humans, making her feel like a child sitting at the adults' table. The Nurian doctors entered with the distinctive gliding motion of their species, their expressions unreadable to human eyes. "I've reviewed the case files," Dr. Kim began, activating her tablet to display her notes, "and I believe we might have something that could help Jiho walk." The head physician, Dr. Jun, tilted his head. A gesture Dr. Kim had learned indicated skepticism. "With respect to your species' medical achievements, our technology is considerably more advanced. We have explored all biological solutions." "That's exactly my point," Dr. Kim said, standing up to seem less diminutive. "You've explored biological solutions. We're proposing a mechanical one with neural interfaces." She showed them videos of children on Earth using exoskeletons guided by neural headsets. The technology used artificial intelligence to interpret even weak or scrambled brain signals and translate them into movement. It wasn't elegant by Nurian standards, the materials were relatively crude, the design utilitarian, but it worked. "This technology was developed for people whose neural pathways were damaged beyond repair," she explained. "Instead of fixing the pathway, we created a new one." The Nurians exchanged glances, their large eyes blinking in their species' version of contemplation. Finally, Dr. Jun spoke. "An interesting approach, but our biology is silicate-based, not carbon-based like yours. The interface would be incompatible." Dr. Kim had anticipated this objection. "That's why I'm not suggesting we use our exact technology. I'm proposing we work together to adapt the concept to Nurian physiology." Over the next few days, a cautious collaboration formed. Dr. Lee, a younger Nurian physician with a reputation for unorthodox approaches, joined the team enthusiastically. He had been Jiho's doctor since birth and had grown frustrated with traditional methods' failures. "The boy deserves to walk," Dr. Lee told Dr. Kim as they worked late one evening. "If there's even a small chance your approach might work, we should try it." Jiho's parents gave permission for the experimental treatment, though the father asked penetrating questions about potential risks and complications. Dr. Kim appreciated their caution. It matched her own. "We'll take this step by step," she assured them. "The first phase is just designing an interface that can read Jiho's neural signals in a way our mechanical system can interpret." What followed was an intensive 2-week period of research and development. The human and Nurian teams worked around the clock, combining their knowledge in ways neither had considered before. The Neurians provided advanced materials that could safely interface with their silicon-based neural systems. Humans contributed their expertise in mechanical movement and signal interpretation algorithms. Jiho himself became an eager participant, sitting through long scanning sessions without complaint. He asked endless questions about how everything worked, often suggesting ideas that the adults had overlooked. "What if it listened to my thoughts here instead?" he asked one day, pointing to a different area on his head. "That's where I feel the trying to walk feeling." Dr. Kim exchanged glances with Dr. Lee. They'd been focusing on the standard motor control centers, but perhaps Jiho's condition had caused his brain to adapt differently. "Out of the mouths of children," Dr. Kim said with a smile. Dr. Lee didn't understand the human expression, but he understood the sentiment. They recalibrated their approach based on Jiho's suggestion, and the next round of signal tests showed a 40% improvement in clarity. Word of the unusual collaboration spread through the medical community. Some Neurian specialists dismissed the approach as crude, a mechanical band-aid rather than a true cure. Others watched with cautious interest. A few even volunteered their expertise in specialized areas. By the end of the first month, they had produced a prototype. It looked nothing like the human exoskeletons Dr. Kim had shown initially. This one was sleek, almost invisible when worn, under clothing, and incorporated Neurian bio-responsive materials that adjusted continuously to Jiho's body. "It's beautiful," Jiho's mother whispered when they first revealed it. "But will it work?" "There's only one way to find out," Dr. Kim replied, looking at Jiho's eager face. "Are you ready to try?" Jiho nodded, his eyes wide with a mix of hope and fear. Dr. Lee knelt beside him. "Remember, young one, even if this doesn't work exactly right today, we learned something important for tomorrow." As they prepared for the first test, Dr. Kim felt the weight of everyone's expectations. She had started this project confident in her approach, but the more she learned about Neurian physiology, the more she understood the challenges. This was no longer just about helping one child. It had become a test case for what humans and Neurians could achieve together. The room fell silent as they carefully fitted the prototype to Jiho's legs. His expression was serious, concentrated, as if he understood the significance of what they were attempting. Despite their different biologies, despite coming from worlds light years apart, in that moment Dr. Kim recognized something universal in the child's face: determination, courage, and hope that transcended species. The prototype sat on the workbench, like a delicate silver sculpture, beautiful but still incomplete. Dr. Kim rubbed her tired eyes and checked the time, nearly midnight by the local Neurian schedule. She'd been working for 14 hours straight, yet the neural interface still wouldn't properly translate Jiho's brain signals to the mechanical components. "Maybe we should continue tomorrow," suggested Dr. Tay, who had joined the project after hearing about their unusual approach. Unlike some of his colleagues, he'd set aside his initial skepticism and now seemed genuinely invested in their success. "Just one more adjustment," Dr. Kim said, reaching for her tools. She couldn't stop thinking about Jiho's face when they'd had to tell him the first fitting wouldn't happen yet. He'd nodded bravely, but the disappointment in his eyes had been unmistakable. Dr. Tay watched her work with curiosity. "Your species is remarkably persistent," he observed, "even when the odds suggest failure." "Especially when the odds suggest failure," Dr. Kim replied with a small smile. "It's one of our better qualities." Their working relationship had been tense at first. Dr. Tay had been educated to believe that human technology was crude and simplistic compared to Neurian advancements. And in many ways he was right. Neurian medical science could regrow entire organs, cure most genetic disorders before birth, and extend their lifespans far beyond human capabilities. But here was a problem they couldn't solve, while this woman refused to accept defeat. "The signal degradation happens here," Dr. Kim said, pointing to a connection point where the biocompatible Neurian material met the mechanical components. "Your materials are amazing, but they're not designed to interface with our motion systems." Dr. Tay leaned closer. "Perhaps we're approaching this incorrectly." he said slowly. We've been trying to make our technologies compatible when we should be creating something entirely new. That conversation marked a turning point. Instead of trying to adapt human technology to work with Neurian biology, they began designing a hybrid system from scratch. Dr. Kim shared everything she knew about neural interfaces and mechanical movement systems, while Dr. Tay brought his expertise in Neurian physiology and bioresponsive materials. Other specialists joined their growing team. Dr. Yu, a Neurian expert in quantum computing, helped create algorithms that could better interpret Jiho's unique neural patterns. Jack, a human engineer who had arrived with a later delegation, contributed innovations in lightweight materials that wouldn't burden Jiho's slender frame. Progress was neither smooth nor predictable. Some days brought breakthroughs that had the entire team celebrating. Other days ended in frustration when promising approaches failed during testing. Through it all, Jiho visited the lab regularly, serving as both inspiration and test subject. Does it hurt when we connect this part? Dr. Kim would ask as they fitted components to his legs. Not hurt exactly, Jiho would reply thoughtfully. It feel tickly, like tiny sparkles under my skin. His descriptions, though childlike, often provided crucial insights. When Jiho mentioned that the sensation changed depending on which thoughts he focused on, they redesigned the neural interface to better capture those specific thought patterns. The cultural exchange between team members extended beyond the laboratory. Dr. Kim learned that Neurians expressed excitement by blinking rapidly, something she'd initially misinterpreted as confusion. Dr. Tay discovered that humans often used humor during stressful situations, not as disrespect, but as a coping mechanism. I still don't understand why the chicken needed to cross the road, he confessed. One evening, as they shared a meal after a particularly challenging day, That's okay, Dr. Kim laughed. Half the time we don't either. 6 weeks into the project, they faced their biggest setback. During a calibration test, the entire system overheated, damaging some of the delicate components and leaving Jiho with a mild burn on his left leg. I'm so sorry, Dr. Kim told his parents, fighting back tears of guilt and frustration. We took every precaution we could think of. Jiho's mother reached out and gently touched Dr. Kim's hand, a gesture that surprised her, as Neurians rarely initiated physical contact with other species. Before you came, she said softly, we had no hope. Now we have seen my son's legs move, even if only in tests. We continue. Her words renewed the team's determination. They redesigned the thermal regulation system, incorporating cooling elements from Neurian space technology. They tested each component separately before reassembly, working methodically to eliminate any potential risks. By the 3rd month, they had created something unlike anything that existed on either Earth or Nuri. The exoskeleton was now so thin and flexible, it resembled metallic fabric more than machinery. The neural interface had evolved from a headset to tiny sensors embedded temporarily beneath Jiho's skin. The control system combined human AI learning algorithms with Neurian quantum processing. It's ready, Dr. Kim announced after the final. Diagnostic tests showed positive results across all systems, or as ready as it will ever be. The team gathered in the medical center's largest treatment room for the official fitting. What had begun as a small, almost secret project now had the attention of Nuri's top medical officials. Some came out of genuine interest, others out of skepticism, eager to document a human failure. Jiho arrived wearing his ceremonial clothing, a gesture of respect for the occasion that touched Dr. Kim deeply. His parents stood nearby, holding hands tightly, their expressions carefully controlled but hope visible in their eyes. As Dr. Kim and Dr. Tay worked together to fit the system to Jiho's legs, they exchanged a glance of mutual respect. They had moved beyond their cultural differences, beyond the competition between their world's technologies. Whatever happened next, they had created something neither civilization could have developed alone. Are you ready? Dr. Kim asked Jiho, kneeling, to meet his gaze. The boy nodded, his eyes reflecting both excitement and fear. What if it doesn't work? He whispered, voicing the question everyone was thinking. Dr. Kim smiled at him. Then we learn from it and try again. That's how progress happens, on my world and on yours. She stood and stepped back, giving Jiho space. Dr. Tay activated the system with a gesture over the control panel on Jiho's wrist. The room fell silent as tiny lights flickered to life along the exoskeleton's surface. Jiho closed his eyes, concentrating just as they'd practiced. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, almost imperceptibly at first, his right foot lifted slightly off the ground. The medical chamber had never been so quiet. Nearly 30 people stood frozen in place, watching as Jiho's right foot hovered a few centimeters above the floor. The boy's face showed intense concentration. His large eyes narrowed in focus, lips pressed tightly together. The only sound was the barely audible hum of the exoskeleton's power system. Dr. Kim held her breath. After months of work, countless failed attempts, and one particularly disastrous test that had nearly ended the project entirely, this small movement represented a breakthrough that neither human nor Nurian medicine had achieved alone. But lifting a foot wasn't walking. The real test was still to come. "You're doing great, Jiho," she encouraged softly. "Remember what we practiced. Think about putting your foot forward, just like in the simulations." Jiho nodded without opening. His eyes, a bead of moisture, the Nurian equivalent of sweat, trickled down his temple. The foot moved forward hesitantly, trembling slightly, before touching down about 10 centimeters ahead of its starting position. Someone gasped. Dr. Tay was rapidly blinking, the Nurian expression of excitement or surprise. Jiho's parents clutched each other's hands so tightly their knuckles had paled to nearly white. "Now the left foot," Dr. Kim prompted, keeping her voice steady despite the emotion building in her chest. Just like we practiced, the left foot lifted, moved forward with slightly more confidence than the right had shown, and settled on the floor. 2 steps. Jiho had taken 2 steps. The boy opened his eyes, looking down in wonder at his own feet positioned in front of him rather than beneath him. A smile spread across his face, an expression that looked remarkably similar on Nurians as it did on humans. "I'm standing," he whispered. "I'm really standing." His father moved forward instinctively, but stopped himself, clearly unsure if approaching might disrupt Jiho's concentration or balance. Dr. Kim nodded reassuringly. "It's okay. The system will stabilize him even if he wobbles. That's part of what we designed it to do." Jiho looked up at his approaching parents, his smile growing wider. "Watch," he said, his voice filled with determination. Before anyone could respond, he lifted his right foot again and took another step forward. Then another with his left foot. His movements were slow and deliberate, but unmistakably intentional. The room erupted in sounds of amazement. Even the most skeptical Nurian doctors were rapidly blinking now. Dr. Sun, the senior medical officer who had initially refused to support the project, moved closer to examine the exoskeleton as Jiho continued his careful progress across the floor. "The interface is reading his neural patterns and amplifying them," Dr. Kim explained, unable to keep the pride from her voice. "The mechanical components respond to those amplified signals. It's bypassing the damaged pathways entirely." "Remarkable," Dr. Sun admitted, his earlier skepticism apparently forgotten. "We've been so focused on repairing neural damage that we never considered creating an alternate pathway." Jiho had now taken 6 steps and was standing in front of his mother. She knelt down, bringing her face level with his. Tears streamed down her face, another biological response shared by both species. "How does it feel?" she asked, her voice trembling. Jiho considered the question seriously, as he did all questions. "Heavy," he finally said. "But good heavy. Like when you wrap me in all the blankets during cold season." He took another step, bringing himself close enough to embrace her. "I'm walking, Mother. I'm really walking." Dr. Kim felt a hand on her shoulder and turned to find Jack, the human engineer, standing beside her. His eyes were suspiciously bright. "Look what you started," he said quietly. She shook her head. "Look what we all built together," she corrected. "Across The room, Dr. Tay was explaining the system to a group of fascinated younger Nurian doctors. The excitement in his voice was evident even through the translation device. He caught Dr. Kim's eye and gave a small nod of acknowledgement, a gesture he'd picked up from the humans. The testing session continued for nearly an hour. They carefully monitored Jiho's vital signs, making sure the exertion wasn't too much for his unused muscles. They recorded data from the neural interface, noting which thought patterns produced the strongest responses. Most importantly, they let Jiho explore his new ability, watching as his confidence grew with each circuit of the room. By the time they called for a break, Jiho had walked nearly 50 steps in total. The boy was visibly tired but refused to admit it. "Can I show my friends tomorrow?" he asked as the system was carefully removed. "Let's give it a few days," Dr. Kim suggested gently. "We need to analyze today's data and make sure everything is working perfectly." In truth, she was concerned about potential muscle strain. Jiho's legs had never supported his weight before, and even with the exoskeleton doing most of the work, his body needed time to adjust. But she couldn't bring herself to dampen his enthusiasm completely. Maybe in 3 days if all the tests looked good. That seemed to satisfy him. As his father carried him from the room, the old way for now, Jiho waved at the entire team. "Thank you for my new legs," he called out. After the family left, the medical staff erupted into excited discussion. Ideas were flying rapidly. Ways to improve the system, possibilities for adapting it to other conditions, questions about long-term use. The barrier between human and Nurian approaches seemed to have dissolved entirely. Dr. Sun approached Dr. Kim as she was reviewing the data. From the session, "I must admit," he said formally, "that I was wrong to doubt this project. What you've accomplished is extraordinary." "What we've accomplished," she corrected him. "This wouldn't have been possible without Dr. Tay's insights into Nurian physiology, or Dr. Yu's computing expertise, or the materials your engineers provided." Dr. Sun considered this. "Perhaps that is the most valuable lesson here. Our medicine has advanced so far that we sometimes forget the virtue of simple solutions. And in focusing on our differences, we overlooked what might be accomplished by combining our strengths." As the excitement continued around her, Dr. Kim found a quiet moment to send a message back to Earth. The interstellar communication would take hours to reach her colleagues, but she wanted to share the news as soon as possible. She included video of Jiho's first steps and a simple message. Today, a child walked who never could before, and 2 worlds took their first steps toward a new kind of medicine. 6 weeks after Jiho took his first steps, the Great Hall of Nurian Sciences was filled beyond capacity. Delegates from 7 planets had traveled to witness what many were calling a medical miracle. The Interplanetary Medical Conference, normally a formal affair with carefully scheduled presentations, had been completely reorganized to feature the unexpected collaboration between human and Nurian medical teams. Dr. Kim sat in the front row, still somewhat uncomfortable with the attention their project had received. Beside her, Dr. Tay appeared equally uneasy with the recognition, though for different reasons. He had confessed to her earlier that some of his colleagues still viewed working so closely with humans as a step backward for Nurian medicine. "They'll understand soon enough," she had assured him. Now, as they waited for the main presentation to begin, she wondered if that was true. Would they really understand the significance of what had happened? This wasn't just about helping one child walk. It was about recognizing that different paths of evolution and technological development had created both strengths and blind spots in how each species approached problems. The lights dimmed slightly, signaling the start of the session. Dr. Sun stepped onto the central platform, his tall frame commanding immediate attention from the diverse audience. "Distinguished guests," he began, his words automatically translated for the various species present. "Today we witness not just a medical advancement but a philosophical one. For generations, we Nurians have prided ourselves on having developed the most sophisticated biological medicine in the known galaxy. Our ability to manipulate the very building blocks of life has saved countless lives and cured diseases once thought untreatable." He paused, looking across the audience. "Yet, we could not help a child walk. Our sophisticated approaches failed, where a supposedly simpler one succeeded. This challenges everything we thought we knew about medical progress. Murmurs spread through the audience. Dr. Kim felt a flutter of nervousness. Would this turn into a defense of Nurian medicine's superiority? Dr. Sun had been supportive recently, but old habits of thinking were hard to break. Her concern proved unnecessary. This collaboration has taught us that advancement does not always mean increased complexity, Dr. Sun continued. Sometimes it means seeing the problem from an entirely different perspective. He gestured toward the side of the stage. I present to you the living proof of this lesson. The audience fell silent as Ji-ho walked onto the stage. Not limped, not stumbled, but walked with steady, confident steps. The exoskeleton had been refined over the weeks since that first test. Now it was nearly invisible beneath his clothing, only the faintest outline visible around his legs. His neural interface had been miniaturized to a small disc at the base of his skull, covered by his hair. Ji-ho reached the center of the stage and smiled broadly at the audience before turning to face Dr. Sun. He executed a perfect formal Nurian bow, a movement requiring balance and control that would have been impossible for him 6 weeks ago. Applause erupted from the human delegates, quickly joined by the various sounds of appreciation from other species. The Nurians in attendance began their traditional rapid blinking of approval and respect. Thank you, Ji-ho, Dr. Sun said, genuine, warmth in his voice. Would you like to say something to our guests? Ji-ho nodded and turned to face the audience. Dr. Kim felt a surge of pride. The shy boy they'd first met now stood confidently before hundreds of the galaxy's top medical minds. Before the doctors helped me, I used to watch other children from my window, Ji-ho began, his young voice clear and steady. I would dream about what it felt like to run or jump or even just to stand. Now I know. He took a few steps forward, demonstrating the natural movement of the system. Yesterday I played catch with my friends for the first time. I wasn't very good, he added with a smile, but I was there, standing with them, not watching from my chair. Ji-ho turned slightly to address the Nurian section of the audience. Our doctors tried to fix what was broken inside me. The human doctors didn't try to fix me. They gave me a new way to walk instead. Both ways are important. Such wisdom from a child, Dr. Kim thought, blinking back tears. After Ji-ho's demonstration, he joined his parents in the audience while Dr. Kim and Dr. Tae took the stage alongside other team members. They presented the technical details of their work, carefully explaining how the hybrid system functioned, and answering questions from the delegates. The most significant moment came when a Nurian neurological specialist asked, could this approach work for conditions other than Ji-ho's specific case? Dr. Tae stepped forward to answer. We believe so. In fact, we've already begun adapting the system for 3 additional patients with different forms of mobility impairment. The principles are the same, even when the specific conditions vary. And beyond Nurian physiology? Asked a delegate from Proxima Centauri. Dr. Kim nodded. The fundamental approach, bypassing damaged neural pathways rather than trying to repair them, should be adaptable to many species. We're already working with medical teams from Earth to apply what we've learned here to human patients with spinal injuries. As the presentation continued, Dr. Kim noticed something remarkable happening in the audience. Delegates who would normally remain separated by species were mingling, exchanging ideas, forming impromptu discussion groups. Theoretical barriers that had divided different approaches to medicine for generations were dissolving before her eyes. After the formal session ended, a reception was held in the adjacent hall. Ji-ho became the center of attention, patiently demonstrating his walking ability for curious delegates and answering their questions with the straightforward honesty only a child could manage. Dr. Kim found herself standing next to Dr. Sun, watching the scene from a quiet corner. When I first arrived on Nuri, she said reflectively, I never imagined anything like this. Dr. Sun nodded. Nor did I. I expected to tolerate the human delegation, perhaps learn some minor techniques and continue our work as before. He turned to look directly at her. I was wrong. We were all wrong. About human medicine, about progress itself, he clarified. We believed that advancement must always build upon what came before, moving in a single direction. Now I understand that true progress sometimes requires stepping back, looking sideways, or even starting from an entirely different place. Across the room, a group of young Nurian medical students had gathered around Jack, the human engineer. He was sketching something on a tablet while they watched intently, occasionally offering suggestions that he would incorporate into the design. The next generation will not make our mistakes, Dr. Sun observed. They will not see differences as barriers but as opportunities. Dr. Kim smiled, remembering how tense the first meetings between the human and Nurian teams had been, how carefully they had navigated cultural differences and professional pride. Now, 6 weeks later, those same individuals worked together seamlessly, their different perspectives strengthening rather than hindering their work. Later that evening, as the conference wound down, Ji-ho and his parents approached Dr. Kim. The boy was clearly tired from the long day but still walking independently. "We wanted to thank you again," his mother said, her voice thick with emotion. "Not just for helping our son, but for showing us all a new way forward." Ji-ho looked up at Dr. Kim with serious eyes. "Will you have to go back to Earth soon?" She nodded. "Eventually, but not yet. We still have work to do here first." "Good," the boy said firmly. "Because I want to learn how it all works. Then maybe someday I can help design systems for other kids. Maybe even human kids." Dr. Kim smiled, touched by his ambition. "I think that's a wonderful goal." As she watched the family leave, Dr. Kim reflected on how far they'd come. What had started as an unexpected connection between two different approaches to medicine had grown into something that would benefit countless patients across multiple worlds. More importantly, it had created a new understanding of how progress really happened, not through one civilization's advancement alone, but through the combination of different perspectives, each with their own unique wisdom to contribute. And it had all begun with one child's desire to walk,